Hi, good morning. I'm up and ready to talk about P4 this morning. I know some of you are struggling with some of the earlier ones. Don't forget that I'm on Zoom in the afternoons live if you need one-on-one help, so you can share your screen with me and I can kind of talk you through some of the ones you're struggling with, okay? So this particular one is finding side lengths and angle measures given that two figures are similar to each other. So it's going to tell us, let me get a color here that you can actually see. It's going to tell us a similarity statement in this one, so that's really nice. And then it's going to ask us to find something based on what's given, okay? So in this case, it tells us that triangle PQR is similar to triangle STU, and it asks us to find P, okay? So I think this problem is you don't really even need similar figures for because what you know about triangles, right? So we know that some of the measures in a triangle are 180 degrees. So what we could do is we could just take our calculator and say, okay, I know there's 180 total degrees in this triangle, so let me just subtract 95 and then subtract 40, and that's going to give me 45. So without knowing anything about similar figures, I'm able to, I'm able to determine that this angle that's missing here, angle P, is 45 degrees. Now, what it's telling me is that P, if I'm looking at this similarity statement, that P has to be the same angle measure as S. So I also could have just come over here and found S, and without doing any math at all, or without doing any like computation at all, I could determine that P is 45 based on S, because we know in similar figures that they have to have the same angle measure. So let me get rid of that, and let's answer this question, which we just decided was 45. Submit. Okay, so let's do that again. So here's my similarity statement, and it wants to know what's W, and W is going to be the same as Q, so I'm going to see if Q is given, and it is. So because Q is 53, we know W has to also be 53. Pretty simple once you realize that the angles have to be the same. Oh, I need my, here we go. All right, so now we're going to find a side length. So we've got UVW is similar to RQP. And so we're looking for PR here. This is this unknown side. Whoa, sorry. On this triangle right here. And so we know that PR, which is this, has to be the same as WU. So PR has to be the same as WU. So I would come over here and say, or not, I'm sorry, not the same, but it has to be the same proportion. So I would say P, that's an R. So PR is to U, W, U as, and then I can really pick any other two sides I want, right? So we actually talked about this in class with Miss Cook. I need to start with the same thing though. So like I could say RQ. So I'm just picking two other sides that I know are proportionate. Okay, so but if I start with PR, then I'm starting with this triangle, then I have to start with this triangle again. So RQ is going to be similar to UV. This way I can write a proportion and just solve it, right? Which is kind of what this whole thing's about. So I know that PR is my unknown, so let's just call that X. And WU is 1. RQ is 7. And UV is 1. And so this is actually kind of straightforward. I think you can see it pretty easy, but if you want to go ahead and do cross products, this would be 1 times x, which is x is equal to 7 times 1, which is 7. So that tells me that this side has to be 7. I think you can probably see it, like if this is 1, 1, 1, then this is going to have to be 7, 7, 7. If you can't see it, though, you can absolutely set up the proportion every time and just solve for it like I just did. So let's do that again. So just kind of looking at it, you know, I've got these two 20 sides, which are going to be proportionate to these two sides. And if I were to multiply 2 times 10, I would get 20. And I've already been told they're similar, so I know they're going to have the same proportion. So 2 times 10 is 20. 2 times 10 is 20. So 3 times 10 is 30 is probably going to be my answer. But I can set up a proportion here for the one that I'm looking for. And so I'm looking for GH, which is here. So I know that GH, that's funny, is to CD. Just use that crazy line that I drew. And then I can just pick any other two. So I just said GH, which is this unknown side, this long side. I don't know if I can draw a straight line or not. There we go. Is equal to CD, which I think is probably pretty obvious. And then I'm going to pick any two other lines, so maybe HI and DE. And it probably wouldn't hurt, guys, if you were to take notes while you're watching these videos so you can refer back to having an example. So HI is this one, and DE is this one. So when I write my similarity statement here, GH is the one I don't know, so let's go ahead and make that X. And then CD is 3. And then HI is 20. And DE is 2. Okay. And then I can do cross products here. Let me move this somewhere else. So let's see. X times 2 is 2x. And 3 times 20 is 60. And then divide by 2 and you get 30. So same answer, a little more work. You might be able to just see it. Oh. So my answer here is going to be 30. Okay. Get rid of some of that junk on my screen. All right. So I think you kind of got that. I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit and not do a million examples that look exactly the same. My mouse moves so slow. There we go. This is my mouse just moving super slow. Okay, so it wants to know J, H, and V. So guys, just figure out, like, what does J match in the similarity statement? So it's the middle letter. So J is going to match T, and T is 94. So J is 94. Okay? I don't know why I'm writing in there like that. And then H is the first one, and it matches R. So H is going to be 130. And then V matches G, and G is 92. So you can kind of quickly see here that my answers are 94 and then 130 and then 92, right? So you just match in the similarity statement, match in the similarity statement, okay? Okay, so get rid of this. Next question says, find AB, find PQ. At this point, well, let's just look at it. So AB is this side right here. And AB is going to match RQ, right? RQ. But there's going to be some kind of proportion that I need to know in order to be able to figure it out. So hold on. Then PQ, which is this one right here, is going to match CB, this one right here, okay? And so, I'm going to end up having to use this information, but I'm going to have to use something that isn't maybe super obvious at first, which is the one that will give me my proportion I can actually work with. So I know what PT is. PT, which is this first and last, right, is proportionate with CD. So here's a proportion that I know that I can work with, right? I know that PT is to CD is 4/36. Okay, and I might even reduce that if I'm going to be working with it. 4 and 36 are both divisible by 4, so this reduces to 1/9. Okay, and so what we're saying here is that if I multiply these side lengths times 9, I would get these side lengths. Or if I take 1/9 of these side lengths, or divide by 9, I will get these side lengths, right? Because 36 divided by 9 is 4, and 4 times 9 is 36. So that's the concept I'm using in order to be able to find these side lengths, okay? So if I look at these two blue sides, if I want to find PQ, then I know that, let me switch to blue here. I know that I'm looking at, and I'm starting with, because I started with PT, every time I'm going to be starting with a smaller figure. So I'm saying that PQ is to CB, right? That's the proportion that works. And that proportion has to equal the 1/9. This 1/9 is going to work for the proportion for every single side of this figure. So I'm going to set that equal to 1/9, right? But I know CB. CB is 54. So I'm actually going to replace CB with 54, and that's going to allow me to solve for this. Now, you might not have needed to solve for it this way. You might have said, you told me I could divide by 9, and that would give me this one. Yep, that's true. We're going to get 6. It's going to happen. But this is a method for those of you who maybe don't see that, okay? So let's call this X for the sake of making this an easier problem and do cross product. So X times 9 is 9x, and 54 times 1 is 54. And then divide by 9, and x is going to be 6, like that. Okay, and so that gives me this guy. And then I need to find AB, which is purple. So let me work in purple here so I can stay color coordinated. And again, I'm going to be working with this 1/9 proportion. If you notice that that times 9 thing is happening, you could say 3 times 9 is 27. I know it's going to be 27. If not, use your proportion, okay? RQ is to AB. Are the two ratios that we can use. And we know our proportion is 1/9 every single time. Okay? And so we know RQ is 3. So let's replace that with a 3. And we don't know AB. We already used X, so I'm just going to call this Y. Okay? And so now I'm going to use cross products. 3 times 9 is 27. And Y times 1 is going to be Y. So that tells me that AB is going to be 27. Okay? So AB we just found was 27. And PQ we just found was 6. It's weird how only part of the stuff erases each time. And so pretty much it goes along this same thread for the remainder of this. I'll do one more with you, kind of one of these complicated ones where we're looking for 2, okay? So we're looking for DG, which corresponds with WT. So DG is this one, and WT is this one. And then we're also looking for VW, and VW corresponds with ED. So we've got VW corresponding with ED. Kind of wrote on top of that 20, but I think I can still see it. So we need a side length that I can compare to get a ratio. So I need to find something to compare with EF. What? Sorry, I don't know what that was. So I need something that I can compare with EF. And let's look here. EF is the middle 2, so that's going to be VU. So this is what's going to allow me to get a proportion to solve the other 2 sides, right? And like I said, they're not always obvious. You can't always just multiply or divide. So EF is 40 and VU is 16. And both of these are at least divisible by 4, right? Probably something better than that. But let's say you just see 4. Then you're going to write this as 10 because 40 divided by 4 is 10. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And then hopefully you say, oh, but 10/4, both of those numbers are even, so I can divide them by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. And so my proportion I'm going to be working with on this one is 5/2. And so now it's not as easy as I can just multiply by 8 or divide by 8 or whatever. I actually need to set up my proportions to solve, okay? So let's start with DG, which I was working in purple. And we said, okay, if I want to solve for DG, and notice that I started this with EF, so I'm always going to be starting with this figure, okay? So DG is to WT as, oh, and then I already, see, I don't have to say 2 more sides, right? Because I already figured out my ratio that I'm going to be working with. My ratio is 5/2. And then DG is what I don't know, so let's call it X. And WT, I do know. WT is 16. And I'm going to set that equal to 5/2. And then cross products here, X times 2 is 2X. And 16 times 5 is 80. I think that's right. I'm just, because it would be not, okay, I was right. And then divide by 2, and X is going to equal 40. Right, so I'm saying, okay, DG is going to be 40. And then my last piece here, I need to find VW, but be careful here. I'm going to go to blue because I don't want to write VW is to ED. I want to start with this figure because I started with this figure here. So I'm going to say DE is to VW as 5 is to 2, that proportion that I got in the beginning that I know is going to work for all the sides. And then DE is 20, and VW is the one I don't know, and I'm going to use Y because I already used X here. And then that's equal to 5/2. And then cross products, I have 20 times 2, which is 40, and Y times 5, which is 5Y. And then divide by 5, and I get 8. Okay, and so I know that my DG is 40, and my VW is 8. Okay. I hope that helps you guys. I will be again live on Zoom from probably about 1:30 to 3 today. So just you can jump on. Password and link will be in the announcements part of It's Learning. Okay, good luck, you guys.